He's just a simple farmer, yet when it comes to raw power, even the royal guards break into a sweat. And the most astonishing part, he's never trained a single day in his life. Sunlight washes over a village path, where a young boy brandishes a wooden stick, shouting that he is a wizard. He commands his friend to eat his magic, calling her a monster. The girl lunges with a roar, play acting as a beast that eats wizards. A sharp crack sounds as the boy swings his branch, striking her head. She yelps in pain, shocked that he actually hit her. She argues that monsters are supposed to lose to wizards, not get hurt for real. The girl decides she wants to be a wizard instead, and shouted that it is not fair. Observing all this is an old man on the side, known as Grandpa Rabus. The boy asks what do he need to do to become a wizard. Grandpa Rabus explains that simply wanting it isn't enough. Wizards are the pinnacle of humanity, ruling over ordinary humans. They are nobles and knights with mysterious powers. Grandpa then tells the children that neither of them could ever become a wizard. A young man interrupts, telling Grandpa not to discourage them. He reports that a monster has appeared, saying that Rop encountered it at the village entrance last night. Its body is shrouded in a pitch-black shadow, and it resembles a leopard as large as a house. The children's mother tries to calm them, assuring them that the village chief has gone to the city to summon a wizard, and once the wizard arrives, the monster will be dealt with. She forbids the children from entering the forest. News of the monster spreads quickly through the village. Grandpa asks whether the shepherd on Hezeril Hill knows about it. Turan, the shepherd, is shown lying on the grass with his sheep grazing around him. This is his daily routine, simply lying there alone. Fearing he might forget how to speak if he continues like this, Grandpa approaches Turan. Pathetic brat, he scolds. Turan asks him to move, complaining that he is blocking the sunlight. Grandpa questions if he is still thinking about the past incident. Turan snaps back, when my mother died, and you tried to quietly claim the sheep as shared property. Grandpa is left speechless. Turan continues, saying that Grandpa wasn't generous enough to share his mother's inheritance. He adds that they aren't close enough for Grandpa to inquire about his well-being, so there must be some hidden motive. Furious, Grandpa exclaims, you brat. Turan meets his anger with a cold stare. Grandpa explains that a monster has appeared and describes its terrifying appearance. He mentions he is traveling to inform the rest of the village. Turan reacts with mild concern. Grandpa is surprised that Turan isn't frightened, even though he is the most likely target. The old man admits he had worried about him. Turan responds that his concern isn't for himself but for the sheep. He tells Grandpa to leave. Thinking about monsters makes him ponder their power and magic. Just as humans have wizards, beasts have monsters. The village of Blackwater is expecting a wizard to arrive because of the monster. Turan doubts it will be anything impressive, as the chief is of low standing and likely summoned a mediocre wizard. Suddenly, Turan smells blood and investigates. He finds a horrifying sight. Grandpa Rabus lies dead. Someone or something killed him on his return. From the wound, Turan realizes this wasn't an ordinary animal. It must be the monster itself. At that moment, the monster appears exactly as Grandpa had described. Turan feels no fear. As it approaches, he locks eyes with it and shouts, die. Nothing happens. The monster lunges at him, and he tries again, yelling, stop. Again, it has no effect. Turan assumes a fighting stance. He picks up a rock and commands harden, then become faster. The rock flies toward the monster. Every command works perfectly. He realizes he can control anything and shape it as he wishes. The rock rebounds and strikes the monster squarely on the skull. Turan notes that it's his first time using this power on a monster. Now he must deal with the body and mutters a curse against the village fools for the extra work they've caused. It appears that Turan is a wizard himself. 8 years ago, when he was only 10, he first discovered that he possessed unusual abilities. He could lift objects into the air without touching them, and he was able to summon fire and stir the wind at will. Excited by what he had discovered, he ran to show his mother. Instead of sharing his excitement, she panicked and scolded him harshly, ordering him to stop immediately. She forced him to promise that if he wished to continue living with her, he must never use those powers again. Perplexed, the young boy asked her why. In response, she told him a story about nobles and knights. Although both possess extraordinary traits, they are fundamentally different. Nobles are descendants of divine beings, the saviors of ancient humanity. Knights, on the other hand, come from noble bloodlines that have since mixed with ordinary humans. The separation between nobles and knights is strict and meaningful. She confessed that Turan had inherited his powers from his father, who had been a knight. Beyond their town, many corrupt nobles exist who treat knights like property, reducing them to slaves. For that reason, she strictly forbade him from ever revealing that he was a wizard. Now, 8 years have passed, and Turan has faithfully kept the promise he made to his mother. He has no intention of exposing himself as a wizard, nor does he wish to leave the mountain. Suddenly, there is a loud knock at the door. Outside stands a group of boys gripping wooden sticks. They accuse Turan of killing Rabus. Turan immediately fires back, exposing what he believes is their true motive. The village's oldest man died alone, while the younger men were too frightened to stand and fight. Rather than admit their cowardice, they find it easier to blame him and make him their scapegoat. The largest boy clenches his fists and lunges forward, swinging hard in an attempt to knock Turan unconscious. Turan swiftly dodges the blow and counters with a sharp headbutt. Then he calmly says, "Fall." One of the boys instantly collapses as if compelled. Turan proceeds to take down the rest one by one, seizing their sticks and turning the weapons against them. As he fights, a troubling thought lingers in his mind. He has broken the promise he made to his mother. When the fight ends, every boy lies sprawled across the ground, defeated. Turan stands untouched, without even a scratch. Soon after, several women approach. Turan asks if they have also come to fight, but they quickly deny it. Even so, Turan senses what will follow. He believes this confrontation will stir unrest throughout the village. The people will turn against him, and when the opportunity arises, they will try to tear him down. Another knock sounds at the door. It must be the villagers coming for him. Turan flings the door open forcefully, only to find not an angry mob, but a tall, elegantly dressed stranger standing before him. The man apologizes politely, explaining that he is a traveler seeking small favors along his journey and regrets arriving at such an inconvenient moment. Turan admits he is unsettled because of the earlier disturbance. Though his mother raised him with proper etiquette, he rarely bothered to extend such courtesy to the villagers. Turan notices the sword hanging at the traveler's side, which strikes him as unusual. He asks whether the man had been searching for an inn, but invites him inside nonetheless. Turan prepares an assortment of dishes for his guest. The traveler is surprised to learn that Turan has never encountered anyone from beyond the village. He observes Turan's refined behavior and expresses quiet admiration for how he carries himself. Turan explains that it is the result of his mother's teachings, though she passed away several years ago after a long illness. Curious, Turan asks what has brought the traveler here. The man reveals that he came at the villagers' request. They sought someone capable of eliminating a monster puma that roams the area. Then, without hesitation, he discloses that he is a wizard. A shadow of concern crosses Turan's face. The traveler remarks that he can sense the presence of a monster nearby, yet he cannot see it. What puzzles him most is Turan's composure. He appears aware of the creature's existence, yet he neither panics nor attempts to flee. "Who exactly are you?" the traveler asks again. The scene shifts to a memory of Turan's mother. She once explained that a noble would not hesitate to sacrifice a knight if it served a greater purpose. She warned that if the truth about Turan ever came to light, they would be torn apart. He would be reduced to nothing more than a shepherd's dog, used and commanded, and if protecting his identity required it, he might one day have to kill. The wizard remarks that if Turan keeps making that expression, it ruins the joke. He insists he was only teasing, nothing more. Turan exhales in relief. The wizard offers an apology, and Turan admits that it is the first time he has ever heard a wizard crack a joke, so he was caught off guard. The wizard introduces himself as Kjorn. He mentions that he will be turning 75 this year, while Turan shares that he is about to become 18. 75 sounds far too old for someone who looks like you, Turan comments. Kjorn explains that wizards age at a much slower pace than ordinary humans and often live far longer lives. Curious, Turan keeps asking how Kjorn ended up as a wanderer. Kjorn reveals that he served the Arabian family for 60 years before finally parting ways. He longed for open skies and the freedom to travel without being tied down to one place. Turan finds himself enjoying their discussion. It has been many years since he has spoken so freely with someone, and he finds it surprisingly pleasant. Eventually, Kjorn bids farewell and hands Turan an Arabian silver coin, known as the purest of silver currencies, as payment for the meal. Turan accepts it. Kjorn assures him that this will not be their last meeting and hints that he may stop by again from time to time. Turan returns to his usual routine. Yet a quiet happiness lingers within him after encountering another wizard. Their conversation had been calming, almost comforting. The light humor filled his heart in a way he had not expected. Kjorn also altered Turan's long-held perception of knights as nothing more than emotional hunting hounds serving arrogant nobles. For the first time, Turan considers revealing the truth to him. The scene shifts to Kjorn sensing faint remnants of a recent battle, though there is no sign of a monster nearby. He mutters to himself, wondering if the monster had already been slain. If so, by whom did the village chief secretly request assistance from another wizard as well? A sudden chill crawls down his spine. A monster's wraith. Who could possibly have allowed such a thing to happen? There is a basic rule. If the mana from a slain monster's body is not absorbed or properly dispersed, the creature will transform into a wraith. Any competent wizard would have ensured the job was completed thoroughly. Kjorn questions whether whether someone could have been ignorant of this fundamental knowledge. But then he reasons that anyone lacking such basics would never have been able to defeat a monster of that caliber in the first place. Regardless, the responsibility now rests on his shoulders to eliminate it. The wraith launches repeated attacks. Kieran raises his arm, and a brilliant golden arrow, formed of pure magical light, materializes in his grasp. He fires it, but the spell is immediately nullified. He quickly understands that the monster's mana far surpasses his own. The creature disappears in an instant, likely employing some deceptive trick. It suddenly emerges from his shadow. Though taken by surprise, Kieran barely manages to evade the strike. This enormous monster is beyond the capability of a simple knight. At the very least, it would require lower-ranked nobles to confront it. The beast wounds him, and blood begins to spill. Convinced that this may be his final day, Kieran abandons all restraint. Regret floods his thoughts, especially the idea of not dying in an honorable manner. Even so, he resolves to take the monster down with him. Gathering every ounce of mana he possesses into his hand, he prepares to stab the creature the instant it charges. They slowly close the distance, each ready to deliver the finishing blow. Then, from afar, a faint glimmer appears. That distant light shoots forward and pierces straight through the monster. Kieran stands stunned. The creature collapses from a single strike. "Are you alright?" A familiar voice calls out. It is Turan. Kieran stares at him in disbelief. He first demands to know why Turan never revealed the truth earlier, but then changes his question and asks why he chose to intervene just now. The story flashes back to Turan's house, where the two had been seated across from each other. Turan had asked why Kieran was going to such lengths. Kieran had responded by asking what he meant. Turan explained that he did not know the exact terms of the agreement with the village chief, but with Kieran's abilities, he could earn a far more comfortable living elsewhere. Kieran replied that the villagers were unfortunate people, living in isolation and constant fear, without even basic protection. Turan had argued that it was not a wizard's obligation, since wizards were, by nature, individuals who had inherited the power of a god. The scene returns to the battlefield. The monster is not fully dead yet. It surpasses both of them in strength, Kieran warns. He declares it a monster fit for nobles, and urges Turan to inform the village chief to begin evacuating the villagers, while he holds the creature back. Turan calmly responds that if his earlier strike had connected exactly as he intended, the monster would have been completely obliterated. Kieran is astonished to learn that the previous attack was not even Turan's full strength. Small stones begin to rise into the air around Turan, lifted effortlessly by his power. Watching this, Kieran realizes that this encounter is far from a trivial meeting in some remote village, nor is it the reckless display of a young knight. It may well signal the birth of a new world order capable of overturning everything. Turan radiates an overwhelming aura of power. He says that he had been curious about the limits of his own strength as well. The wraith grows even more terrifying, yet Turan stands before it without the slightest trace of fear. Kieran declares that he cannot allow Turan to face such a creature alone, and insists they should fight together. However, the moment Turan releases his power, Kieran realizes he would only hinder him. The wisest choice is to step back and observe. His true role is to nurture Turan's talent and let it flourish. Turan gathers his strength and delivers a powerful strike, pouring all his might into it, but the blow has no effect at all. From behind, Kieran shouts that a wraith cannot be slain through physical force. The battle escalates, and the wraith's presence becomes even more overwhelming. Turan calls out and asks how he is supposed to kill it. With fire or lightning? Kieran answers under his breath. Yet every attempt Turan makes fails miserably. Kieran explains that to use a wizard's power on another living being, proper causality must first be established. He is stunned that Turan does not even grasp the fundamentals of wizardry. Then a troubling thought crosses his mind. Could Turan have been the one who killed the monster earlier and left it to become a wraith? By now, Kieran is convinced that Turan has never absorbed mana in his life. Do not just ignite a flame. Create it, then release it, Kieran calls out. He is astonished that Turan possesses such raw strength despite never having taken in mana before. Turan forms a flame in his palm and begins to compress it. Kieran watches in disbelief. Conjuring fire is simple, but controlling and shaping it is far more difficult. Yet Turan accomplishes it instantly, with all his strength. Turan hurls the concentrated fire forward in a direct assault. The wraith reels and flames finally inflict damage, though it is far from finished. Kieran urges Turan to stay focused and continuously pour mana into the blaze so it does not fade. The objective is clear. Burn away every trace of the wraith. The flames swell fiercely and begin consuming the wraith entirely. Kieran remarks that the wraith was absurdly powerful. It was strong enough that noble class ability would normally be the bare minimum required to defeat it, yet Turan destroyed it alone, not once but twice. The charred skeleton left behind confirms that the creature has truly been eradicated. Kieran warns Turan that if he wishes to avoid facing another wraith, he must learn to absorb mana. Turan admits he has no idea how. Kieran explains the method, and Turan follows his instructions. Suddenly, a green glow rises from the corpse. Turan stretches out his hand, and the radiance streams into him. A surge like lightning rushes through his body, bringing with it a strange, almost intoxicating pleasure. Kieran struggles to process what he has witnessed. He tells Turan that the most efficient way to increase mana is to kill monsters or wizards and absorb their energy. What unsettles him most is that Turan, despite never having done this before, is already immensely powerful. His natural potential is beyond extraordinary. Looking at Turan with a sense of familiarity, Korn asks which house he belongs to. Turan instead tells him to treat his wounds first, as he is still bleeding. Later, back at Turan's home, Kieran's injuries are properly tended. Kieran apologizes for forcing Turan into such a degrading task, but Turan once again insists that he is no distinguished figure, only an ordinary shepherd. Kieran questions why he would remain a shepherd when he is capable of so much more. Turan replies that it was his mother's wish, and he is simply honoring her request. He explains that nobles live beyond the mountains, and if they were to discover who he truly is, they would likely torment him. Kieran acknowledges that his mother was wise. Turan admits he would still argue that she was overprotective, but Korn responds that she is not entirely mistaken. Great power inevitably draws conflict. He recounts that about 20 years ago, a devastating war erupted between the great noble houses, a brutal conflict between House Erebian and House Zahar. The war was catastrophic. Out of 3,000 knights, 900 perished, nearly one-third. Everyone Kieran cherished was among the fallen. His close friend Denver, who dreamed of opening a laundry shop after the war. His teacher Hartman, who used to scold him for not studying hard enough. Even his beloved wife and son. All were slaughtered, leaving Kieran utterly alone. In that sense, Turan's mother was right. The life of a knight is fragile and expendable, often vanishing more easily than that of a commoner. Yet she was mistaken about one thing: aptitude. Turan asks about his aptitude. Korn explains that although he himself is a competent knight, he could not destroy the wraith, yet Turan did so with apparent ease. This proves Turan's ability far exceeds that of an ordinary knight and reaches at least noble level, perhaps even upper-tier aptitude. Turan recalls that his mother once mentioned his father had been a knight and wonders if she might have been wrong. Korn replies that on rare occasions, nobles give birth to children weaker than knights, and sometimes the opposite occurs. He then suggests Turan should leave the hills and explore the world beyond. Turan asks why. Korn answers that humanity still requires strong nobles and knights. Even long after other races were cast out by the gods, humans are not yet the true rulers of the world. Those banished races are waiting for their chance to return. Meanwhile, the nobles squander their strength fighting among themselves. What humanity needs is someone powerful enough to unite them. He also admits he himself is not content living quietly as a shepherd. Turan asks what awaits him beyond the mountains. Wealth, fame, authority, family, friendship, whatever you desire, Korn replies. Or you could follow my path and dedicate yourself to slaying monsters. For the first time, Turan feels genuine excitement about the world outside and begins to agree with Kjorn. Kjorn promises to guide him in every way possible, then asks about his bloodline ability. Turan does not understand the term. Kjorn explains that a bloodline ability is a trait inherited from noble ancestors known as the Freyans. Possessing such an ability is what distinguishes nobles from knights. Turan mentions his keen sense of smell and his exceptional skill at throwing rocks. Korn remarks that heightened scent could indeed be a bloodline trait, and throwing is a specialty of House Arabian, though it is not particularly rare. Suddenly, the air grows colder, and the atmosphere shifts. A different expression crosses Kieran's face as realization dawns in his eyes. He believes he knows which house Turan may belong to, a renowned lineage called the Pursuers, or Hunters. In other words, House Zahar, the very house that once waged war against House Arabian. Hearing the name House Zahar from Kjorn shook Turan deeply. In his heart he began to wonder whether he shared the same bloodline as the elder wizard's enemies. Words refused to leave his mouth. He considered apologizing yet stopped himself. The deeds he felt ashamed of were committed by people he had never met, even if they were related to him in some distant way. Kjorn comforted him and told him not to look so distressed. Turan had not taken part in that war, and he should leave such matters to the older generation. If blood is answered with more blood, the conflict will never end. Turan asked whether Kjorn regretted telling him to descend the hill. If he left the mountain in pursuit of power, it was highly possible he might end up joining the Zahars. Kjorn, however, believed that alongside Turan's talent he possessed strong character. There was goodness in him, not malice. He even added that if Turan rose through the ranks of the Zahar family, he might one day reach the top and put a permanent end to the fighting. Turan stood at a crossroads, his thoughts tangled. It was not as though he intended to join the Zahars immediately. Still, he had decided to leave the mountain once the elder's injuries had healed. Kjorn then took Turan as his disciple and began teaching him the subtleties of mana, the things Turan had missed and the knowledge he never knew. starting from the basics and progressing toward advanced understanding. Mana was often called the key to omnipotence. While not entirely accurate, the phrase conveyed the general idea. He explained that the effectiveness and difficulty of magic depend on three major factors: bloodline, affinity, and causality. Bloodline is inherited at birth and is commonly associated with noble lineages rather than knights. Healing was something Turan could not perform, yet the Revista people of the south could accomplish it effortlessly. Such ability is rooted in bloodline. Affinity resembles familiarity. It refers to how a mage performs better with tasks they favor or frequently practice, such as Turan's fireballs or his skill at launching stones. The most crucial factor, however, is causality. Korn admitted it was difficult even for him to fully grasp. When a desired outcome lacks a proper cause, or when the intended result is excessively difficult to achieve directly, causality becomes essential. Turan said he understood somewhat. If he wished to kill someone, instead of expending mana to simply wish for death, he should create a cause, such as conjuring and launching flames. Producing and projecting fire is more natural than igniting death itself. Hearing this interpretation filled Kjorn's eyes with delight. Turan then asked why he could command ordinary animals at will yet magical beasts required more effort. Kjorn explained that it was because magical beasts possess mana. A skilled mage must understand not only how to wield mana, but also the principles and conditions behind its use. Turan asked whether the Zahar bloodline possessed any unique magic. Kjorn replied that their specialties were stealth and tracking. They proceeded to a physical demonstration. Turan silently wished to remain unseen with no sound or scent detectable, and instantly he vanished. Kjorn could no longer perceive him. Moments later, Turan reappeared out of thin air. Kjorn remarked that it was a terrifying ability, one that had helped tilt the war between the houses in Arabian's disfavor. Despite its power, it was not invincible. He added that he would teach Turan several training methods for magic. Turan questioned whether Kjorn was revealing too much to someone from a rival bloodline. Kjorn replied that Turan had saved his life and treated his wounds, and his character had proven trustworthy. Later, Turan is seen with all his belongings packed into a bag, informing someone that he is selling all his sheep and leaving. The man grows furious, demanding to know who will tend the flock. Turan calmly replies that he should find someone else. He insists on a fair price, or he will simply release the sheep. Anyone would be free to catch them, though doing so would be difficult. The man he speaks to is the village chief, who ultimately buys the sheep, knowing that arguing with Turan would be pointless. For a time, the two wizards walk together. Turan asks about the compensation Kjorn was supposed to receive, but Kjorn says he never intended to claim it, since he was not the one who killed the beast. Eventually, they reach a fork in the road where their paths diverge. Kjorn declines the offer to travel together any further. They part with warm smiles. Turan watches the elder's figure grow smaller in the distance for a long time. The old wizard had become like a father to him, which was why he had earlier asked him not to speak so formally. Turan then journeys across the land alone, crossing valleys and rough terrain. After some time, he spots a group of hooded figures in the distance. Hoping to ask for directions, he approaches them, but they respond by asking why he is blocking their way. When Turan requests directions, they tell him that following their path will lead him to a city called Mure. Just as he prepares to leave, one of the men stops him and questions whether he plans to walk away after getting what he wanted. Suddenly, swords are drawn. They reveal themselves as bandits, and this is a place where no one would come looking if someone disappeared. They tell him to remove his cloak and bag while they are still being polite. At last, it seems Turan has found suitable targets for practice. The bandits refuse to believe a single word the hero says and label him a lunatic. Turan casts wind, and in an instant a violent gust spirals outward, hurling one of the bandits far into the distance. This time he does not create wind from nothing, but guides the existing air with his hand, which consumes far less mana. The remaining bandits drop to their knees, completely stunned. Turan then removes the lid of his bottle and controls the water inside, shaping it into several sharp spearheads aimed directly at the bandits. Fear spreads across their faces as the compressed water shots strike them, leaving deep wounds. Turan had assumed such a spell would require a large volume of water, yet he accomplishes it with very little. Even so, he feels that throwing rocks is still quicker and more powerful. The bandit leader falls to his knees and pleads for mercy, unaware until now that the young boy before him is such a skilled wizard. While the leader begs, the remaining bandits quietly attempt to circle behind Turan, preparing to ambush him. Turan lifts his leg and slams rams it into the ground. Instantly, pillars of rock surge upward from the earth, impaling each of the bandits and killing them. The leader is left utterly shaken. Turan asks him why he attacked without forming a proper plan. After all, he was a lone traveler and could easily have been a wizard. The leader explains that Turan lowered his head respectfully and greeted them even when they treated him rudely, so they assumed he was nothing more than an ordinary person. Turan thanks him for teaching him something useful. "Will you spare me?" the bandit asks. The scene shifts to Kjorn, who once told Turan that scum like bandits should never be shown mercy. They exploit and harm others for profit without hesitation. One fewer bandit means one more innocent person spared. Turan forms a water projectile and ends the leader's life. Afterward, he continues along the path carved by the cart the bandits had been pulling. Yet a single thought lingers in his mind. He has killed people. Guilt weighs on him because he could not bring himself to let them live. Gradually, his restless thoughts calm as he recalls the teachings of the elder. Soon Turan reaches a completely different landscape. It feels like stepping into another world entirely. The city of Mure. It is the first time he has seen so many people gathered in one place. Tall buildings line the streets, shops are busy, and merchants trade goods openly. The architecture stands in sharp contrast to that of his village. A shopkeeper asks whether Turan intends to buy something. Turan replies that he only has a question and is not there as a customer. The shopkeeper immediately dismisses him and tells him to leave. Turan cannot understand why the man behaves so rudely. Thinking he may need to purchase something first, Turan asks for an apple. The vendor replies, 2 dupit. Turan has no idea what dupit means, so the shopkeeper adds that other currencies are acceptable as well. Turan then asks for directions to an inn and is pointed down the street. When Turan enters the inn, he is welcomed by a beautiful woman named Lena. She compliments his appearance and calls him handsome. Turan inquires about the room price, which is 16 dupit per night. Instead of confirming the room, he asks whether there is a monster nearby with a bounty. He seeks such work because he needs to kill monsters to absorb their mana and also earn money. Lena responds that nothing in this world is free and advises him to visit the city hall. Turan does not even know what a city hall is, which convinces Lena that he truly comes from elsewhere. She explains that the city hall manages public matters and that its workers serve under the city lord. She adds that it is likely closed for the night and suggests he go there in the morning. Lena then asks if Turan is a monster hunter. He responds by asking what a monster hunter is. She explains that those who hunt monsters can become wizards. At that moment, a hand rests on Turan's shoulder and a voice asks whether he wishes to become a wizard as well. The speaker is revealed to be a monster hunter named Midden. Midden confirms that it is true people can become wizards by killing monsters and claims he has witnessed it himself. Lena expresses surprise that Midden is still alive. A brief exchange follows when Turan requests that Midden remove his hand, and Midden laughs. Turan asks him to explain more about how one becomes a wizard through monster hunting. Midden states that wizards grow stronger by slaying monsters, and by the same logic, an ordinary person who kills a monster may awaken as a wizard. He adds that he and his group of 4 share the same ambition and are hunting monsters to achieve it. Turan asks whether any of them have already become wizards. They reply that none of them have, as the only wizards in the city are the Lord Wizard and 3 subordinates. Midden observes that Turan appears to hunt monsters, but his equipment looks poor and he carries no proper weapon. Turan responds by showing his sling, which appears well used. He explains that it is effective for quickly launching small objects, even something as fragile as an egg. Midden nods and remarks that it would be suitable for hunting rabbit or fox-type monsters. He even invites Turan to join their party. Turan politely declines. Later that night, lying in bed, Turan reflects that there is no real reason for him to join forces with them. His thoughts drift to his departure from the village and the uncertain events awaiting him. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door. He grows cautious, remembering Korn's warning never to lower his guard, even inside an inn. He opens the door to find Lena standing there. She asks whether he was asleep and says she feared the room might be cold, so she came to keep him warm. Turan is left speechless and can only stammer in confusion, asking what she means. Without hesitation, she begins to untie her dress. "What do you mean by that?" Turan asks. Lena replies that it is exactly what it sounds like. She steps closer with a mischievous smile and says, "For a small amount of money, I will do whatever you want." Turan answers that he does not want anything. Lena presses against him and tells him not to lie, saying it is written all over his face. The moment begins to turn intimate. Suddenly, Turan recalls the elder's warning about maids and prostitutes. He had been told that many of them carry sexually transmitted diseases. Wizards may be immune to illness, but they can still pass diseases to other women if they are careless. Kieran warned him not to let desire trap him in something he would regret. The scene returns to Lena and Turan. Lena storms down the stairs, fuming after being rejected. Turan feels uneasy, realizing that everything has a price here: information, services, even simple conversations. Elsewhere, Medin's subordinate asks why he tried to recruit Turan when there seems to be nothing special about him. Medin explains that Turan would make excellent bait for monsters. Despite his cocky mouth, the boy reminds him of his younger self. When Medin heard that Turan hunts using nothing more than a sling, he became worried and thought that staying with him might help the boy survive a little longer. Perhaps the city is not entirely cold-hearted. The following day, Turan visits City Hall and tells a staff member he has come to hunt monsters. Korn had warned him that the world would show no kindness without reason. Only by revealing himself as a wizard would ordinary people bow their heads in respect. Turan is handed a poster. From its image, the target appears to be a crow-like monster. The official handling him lacks courtesy and answers his questions awkwardly. The rules are simple: bring the corpse of any slain monster into the city. If a slain monster transforms into a wraith, the maximum punishment under city law is execution. Turan is already familiar with this law. Turan turns and leaves. The official mutters that another corpse will soon pile up outside the city. In the next scene, the dead crow monster lies on a table in City Hall. The staff stand frozen in shock. They cannot understand how he returned so quickly. Turan requests his bounty, and the official promptly pays him, even suggesting he take some rest. His tone has completely changed. As officials begin examining the efficiently killed monster, Turan remains standing there. When asked why he has not left, he asks whether there are more monsters worth hunting. The officials cannot believe he is ready for another fight. Later at the inn, a lavish feast covers a table with the finest and most expensive dishes available. It is a fitting spread for a man who defeated 30 monsters in just 3 days, an almost unbelievable achievement. Turan eats until he is satisfied. Every monster he defeated strengthened him by adding to his mana reserves. He can already feel that his power has multiplied several times since meeting Korn. However, he suspects he has reached the limit of what weak monsters can provide. When he finishes eating, even he is surprised by how much he consumed. Lena and the chef are pleased that he enjoyed the food so thoroughly. As Turan prepares to leave, someone suddenly grabs his collar. A group of thugs begins pestering him about the money he has recently earned. Turan raises his hand and strikes one square in the face with a straight palm, sending him flying. "Didn't you want some charity?" he jokes. Another thug rushes forward and receives the same treatment. A third charges with a chair, but Turan stops him and flicks him lightly, which is still enough to send him crashing away. Meanwhile, Lena shouts for them not to fight inside the inn. The thugs quickly apologize to Lena and to Turan. They admit they have fallen behind on money and became jealous of him. Turan asks whether things are truly that difficult. They explain that their opportunities have been limited, and that in 3 days they will not even be able to pay their room fee. Turan offers them money, leaving them confused. He explains that it is repayment for the kindness they showed him earlier. Still, Turan knows nothing comes free and asks for information in return. Maiden claims he is the best source for such knowledge and promises to share everything he knows. Madan provides details about the next city as Turan prepares for his final hunt here and plans his departure. The information proves useful, and Turan begins to believe Midden is a good man. Soon after, Turan catches a strange scent and grows uneasy. Hoping his instincts are wrong, he discovers a corpsey, one of Midden's men, brutally slaughtered. Blood stains the ground. Looking around, he finds Madan himself, killed in the same merciless manner. A sudden sound echoes nearby. It seems someone is not dead after all. A voice mutters, "Rabbit monster." Turan looks into the distance and spots the creature. It has dense fur, glowing red eyes, and radiates a powerful malicious aura. Its claws are far from those of an ordinary rabbit. The monster lunges forward, but Turan swiftly evades the strike, barely avoiding a direct hit. The rabbit moves with lightning speed. Turan swings his sling, channels energy into it, and fires a blast toward the beast. However, the creature blocks the attack with ease. Turan realizes that it is highly skilled at defending against long-range projectile attacks. The rabbit springs toward him again, but Turan suddenly disappears. In the next instant, he appears above the creature, catching it off guard and delivering a lethal strike to its throat. The rabbit lets out a cry of agony. Despite the wound, it charges at Turan once more, but he effortlessly sidesteps the assault. Overwhelmed by unbearable pain, the beast loses control and begins destroying everything in its path. Blood pours out more heavily with each passing second, and eventually it collapses onto the ground. Turan, still invisible, reveals himself and begins absorbing its mana. He immediately senses that this mana is different. The amount is even greater than what he obtained from the leopard monster he had previously defeated. A voice speaks up, "I cannot believe you are a wizard." It is one of Midden's group members. Turan calmly confirms that he is indeed a wizard. The man asks why he concealed his abilities. Instead of answering directly, Turan asks if they have any family members to whom he could deliver their belongings. The man responds that they do not. A memory surfaces of a conversation between Madan and Turan. Maidan had mentioned a magnificent city nearby nearby named Orem, which contained a place called the library. He said it held thousands of books. However, there was a condition: only wizards were permitted to enter the library. Returning to the present, Turan decides to travel there. He performs the final rites for the fallen members and continues on his journey. When Turan finally sees Orem, he is astonished. The city is even more magnificent than Mure. Towering castles rise into the sky, and crowds of people gather at the entrance gates. Every person is being inspected carefully. Perhaps they are searching for a criminal, Turan assumes. When it is his turn, he is stopped and told he cannot enter in his current state. His clothes are filthy, and he must at least clean himself before being allowed inside. Once within the city, Turan gazes at a towering structure that must be the library Midden described. Its sheer size is breathtaking. He approaches the guards at the entrance and states that he wishes to enter. They inform him that the library is restricted to wizards only. Turan responds that he is one. The guards grow irritated and warn him, asking if he has a death wish for impersonating a wizard. They dismiss him as a lunatic. Turan then recalls Kieran explaining that wizards can sense one another's mana and even determine relative strength. Acting on that knowledge, Turan releases his immense aura. The surroundings seem to turn red as an overwhelming pressure fills the air. One of the guards collapses under the weight of Turan's mana. Struggling to speak, the guard says, "He is no ordinary wizard. This man is at least noble class or higher." Regaining composure, he introduces himself as Kenya, a knight of House Valtis, and asks Turan to identify himself as well. Turan counters by asking whether such information is required for entry. Kenya replies that it is not mandatory, but permission from the Master of Valtis is necessary. The scene shifts to Turan being bathed, not by himself, but attended by the maids of House Valtis. He had assumed it would be simple, yet it proves far more uncomfortable than expected. Turan politely interrupts and asks whether he may wash himself instead. The maids explain that they would face punishment if they failed to properly serve an honored guest. After the bath, one of the maids stares at Turan in amazement and softly says, "Amazing." Now completely refreshed, he looks strikingly handsome. Turan asks if something is on his face. The maid apologizes, admitting she was momentarily captivated by his appearance. Turan reassures her that there is no need to apologize. Soon, a red-haired girl appears, accompanied by her bodyguard. She asks if he is the same guest who arrived looking like a beggar. She remarks that after cleaning up, he resembles a prince. Turan introduces himself, and the girl responds that her name is Azella. She inquires about his house, but Turan subtly avoids answering, citing personal reasons. Amused by his secrecy, Azella devises a playful scheme to tease him. She releases her powerful aura, demonstrating her strength, and challenges Turan to reveal his manner as well. If you're excited for the next part, leave a comment, and I'll do my best to bring it to you as soon as possible.